Steve Schoffstall, managing partner and head of ETFs. That's a new title. Did you get promoted?
I did. Thank you.
Congratulations, Steve, and thank you very much for joining us here today. How you doing this Monday?
Doing well. The 49ers won. It's a good day in the metals markets. Happy to be here.
Okay, good days in the metal market. Hey, my Bears won. Maybe we'll have a rematch of our 49ers Bears. That was one of the games of the year. Maybe we'll see that again in the playoffs here. So really, really good stuff. All right. We brought you on because it is your 1 year anniversary for the SLVR ETF. So congratulations. How's it all going?
It's going great. In the last year, tomorrow is actually the 1 year down to the day. We raised over 730 million in assets. A strong silver market helps, where we saw about 180% increase in silver over the last year. But I think what's really resonating with investors are two things. One is the structural supply and demand deficits that we're seeing in silver and expected to see into the future. And then second is the pure play nature of the ETF. It's really the only ETF of its kind where it invests in pure play silver miners, principally. So those miners that have at least 50% of their revenue or assets tied to mining silver. It also has a physical silver component that's about 17% of the fund. And that pure play notion is something that's unique to this product and an expertise that Sprott brings when we develop this index. And it's been great to see investors really latch onto that and appreciate that.
Yeah, no question. And of course, silver added to the list of critical minerals here in late 2025. That's got to help. We got a number of folks here in the chat saying, hey, the timing's pretty good here. Pretty huge year here for some of these metals. Let me ask you, what do you see going forward here? And not necessarily just for silver, but with any of these other metals?
Yeah, if you look at things like copper, silver, lithium, nickel, there's a lot of favorable tailwinds at the moment. Copper is one we've been talking about for a long time. We have two copper ETFs, COPP, COPJ, both pure play strategies. COPP also gives exposure to physical copper in that fund as well. But the copper market's one that's very interesting because it does have that same favorable outlook that we see across a lot of critical materials, where we're expecting to see production deficits going well into the future. We actually slipped into a deficit most likely at the end of last year, as we saw some production misses because we had some outages, whether it's from mudslides or other issues. Nickel, similar thing. Indonesia produces about 60% of the world's nickel. They're talking production cuts, and in order to boost the prices, lithium is finding a second life in battery energy storage systems being used in, I heard you talking about AI before I came on.
Yes,
a
sir.
lot of these AI hyperscaler data centers are relying on lithium ion batteries. That's also boosted lithium prices here in the near term.
Yeah, no question. And I'm assuming we're going to keep seeing that. One of the things I was discussing, it doesn't look like this is going anywhere here. Multiple industries are adopting all of this, and I would imagine that would increase the demand for all of these metals. We talked a little bit about silver, What about its big brother gold here? What do you see for the year coming up here?
Well, if you look at 2026 and how that started, we see a lot of the same themes, right? We see, a weakening dollar that's, we're still in the process. And since a lot of these commodities are priced in dollars, that tends to be well for performance. We also see geopolitical uncertainty, what's going on in Iran, Venezuela. There's discussions around other countries, continuing trade wars. So all this uncertainty has been fueling gold's rise. In addition to that, we see, governments around the world, particularly in emerging markets, China, increasingly turning to gold and adding to their reserves because it can be out of the reach of sanctions, because they can repatriate that gold back inside their own borders. So all these things have been bullish for gold. And, I don't have a crystal ball, but it doesn't look like, at least in the near term, we're going to see a lot of resolution to a lot of these tailwinds that we're seeing.
No, absolutely. And in fact, just today, we're obviously getting news from the weekend that there seems to be some trouble with the Fed or the head there. And that is absolutely increasing some of the uncertainty that you just talked about. Saw gold and silver trading up here again this morning. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was uranium. I know we've talked about this a little bit before. We've had news recently about Meta partnering with Oklo and creating their own power plant, this, that, and the other thing. How much of a ramp do you see for uranium? Do you see that becoming even more important in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I think 2025 was a bit of an odd year for uranium prices. It was probably one of the metals that we talked about that didn't have a lot of price movement in spot prices. though we did see a lot of movement in the underlying miners. As we're looking forward, uranium is on the critical materials list. A lot of the policies that the U.S. government, Australia, Canada, European Union are taking are to secure those global supply chains of critical materials. Uranium falls squarely into that. We see government policies around trying to, across critical materials and uranium included, trying to make it easier to mine uranium, get through that permitting process. We're seeing the U.S. government make investments directly, $80 billion with Westinghouse in order to build some nuclear reactors in the United States. Department of Defense is working on some things. So there's, I'd say, of all the commodities that we track, that's probably one that has by far the most overwhelming medium to long-term outlook. And even in the short term, there's a lot of drivers there as well.
Okay, it looks like you guys are well positioned here. So let me ask you, first of all, great way to have exposure to all of this. We appreciate you coming on and talking about all of these different things. Let me ask you, what's next for Sprott here? Where are you going next to try and help investors and traders alike?
Yeah, so our product development process is maybe a bit more unique than you'd see at other firms. So oftentimes you'll see a lot of companies will throw a lot of things at the wall and hope something sticks and something resonates. At Sprott, we take a very thoughtful approach to product development. First and foremost, everything that we've launched on the ETF side is really tied back to our expertise in metals and mining. That's an area where we continue to be committed to and staying focused as we move forward. And we're constantly scanning the investor outlook and the ETF landscape and see if there's an area where we don't know that there's necessarily a sufficient strategy out there for investors. And if there's a way that we can improve investor outcomes and a commodity that has favorable longer-term characteristics, that's an area we'll look. We have a few things that it's probably a little bit early to talk about at the moment, but we'd expect to see some more things coming out in the next few months.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. They call that a tease in the business, Steve, and we'll take that here. I look forward to speaking with you on any of the new products that you have out. I do have one question here from the chat, if you don't mind me taking that here. Kathy's saying, is there an ETF that combines copper, silver, platinum, and gold?
Not that I'm aware of. Our ETFs, are pure play. We do see investors that are interested in individual commodities. Hold several of those funds. Our COPP holds a physical copper component, SLVR physical silver component. We also have physical trust strategies that have access to gold, silver, platinum, palladium, uranium, copper, all those different strategies. So typically what we see as investors will, kind of cobble together a few different funds to come up with the desired exposure.
Okay, awesome. And folks, if you have any questions or you need any more material on Sprott silver miners and physical silver ETF, or any of the other Sprott products, please go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen. Steve, we really appreciate the time, all of the time. I look forward to having you back here in 2026 and hearing about what you have next for investors here. And tell you what, maybe we'll have a Chicago, San Francisco NFC championship game. We'll see.
That'd be a great matchup. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to getting back.
Steve Schoffstall, everybody, from Sprott Asset Management.